Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Singapore. My name is Leonie Nagarajan. I am a representative of EURAXESS ASEAN, and together with my colleague, Dr. Tatas Protosudamo, I'm representing here EURAXESS Worldwide in the region. A warm welcome to all of you to today's webinar on the future of research and introduction to open science, which we are organizing together with EIFL, the Electronic Information for Libraries. You might know that EIFL is a not-for-profit organization based in Lithuania, but it works worldwide. It has the mission to enable access to knowledge for education, learning, research, and sustainable community development. Why did we choose today's topic for the webinar? There are two reasons for it. The first one is that open science is at the center of European Union's research and innovation agenda. It makes scientific research, data, and outputs more accessible to all, and it aims to remove barriers to sharing knowledge and fosters collaboration across disciplines. Through this closer collaboration and transparency, open science also seeks to democratize knowledge, addresses global challenges, and drives societal progress. Open science is a legal obligation under Horizon Europe, and it's based on the principle as open as possible, as closed as necessary. The second reason why we organize this webinar today, it is in a way a kind of a curtain raiser. We are very happy that we can support Singapore's Open Research Conference, which will take place on the 11th and 12th of November here in Singapore. It is organized by Nanyang Technological University together with other Singaporean universities. And we have also a representative here today who will be able to share with you a little bit more about this conference. So to our speakers, and I will start with EIFL. Our speakers from EIFL are Iryna Kuchma and Milica Ševkušić. And Iryna is the manager of EIFL access programs over the past 15 years already. She works with libraries and library consortia in more than 50 countries across Africa, Asia, and Europe. Iryna, you also sit on the board of the Confederation of Open Access Repositories, the Global Sustainability Coalition for Open Science Services, and the Network Digital Library of Theses and Dissertations. Thank you so much, Iryna, for being with us today. And then your colleague, Milica. Milica, you coordinate the Open Access Program for EIFL, and you are a librarian at the Institute of Technical Sciences of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts. I think you're both currently based in different countries, but both in Europe. So good morning to the two of you. You're our expert speakers, so I understood that we will hear from you for the next 30 to 35, 40 minutes. And then afterwards, you will address the questions from the audience. And the audience, I encourage you to put your questions in the chat. Iryna and Milica will address them later. And last but not least, Suni, you can switch on your video for a short while right now. Yes, I'm happy to also welcome Suni Go. Suni is the Deputy Director for Research Data Management at the Office of Information, Knowledge and Library Services at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. As I mentioned earlier, together with her team, she is leading this conference in November and will share with us at the end a few more insights about the preparation, and of course invites you all to come to Singapore if you have the opportunity to join. Without further ado, I'm handing over now to Iryna and to Milica for their presentation.
Thank you so much, Leonie. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to see you. Thanks for joining, and we hope we'll have an interesting conversation today. Please use Q&A for your questions, or if you want, you can also use the chat. We're not many today. I think we can follow discussions in the chat. Milica and I will talk about open science in international context, also open science in the European context, linked to research funding activities. Then we'll also talk how you can make your research more open, and we'll show some examples from different types of research projects. Starting from definitions, one open science definition comes from UNESCO recommendation on open science, and your governments adopted UNESCO recommendations as the first international instrument on open science, and your governments also need to report this year how they are implementing open science recommendations. So that's why I thought UNESCO definition would be useful. And it describes open science as an inclusive construct that makes scientific knowledge openly available, accessible, and reusable for everyone, with a goal to increase scientific collaborations and sharing of information for the benefits of research, science, but also society. And open science is also about opening up the process of knowledge creation to societal actors beyond academia, beyond traditional scientific community. UNESCO recommendation covers different types of open scientific knowledge, scientific publications, open research data, open educational resources, open source software, and also open hardware. This document also stresses importance of open science infrastructures, open access journals, repositories for publications and data, and other virtual and physical infrastructures. It also calls upon open engagement of societal actors, making society, citizens part of research process, and opening up the dialogue with other knowledge system, traditional knowledge system, for example. And open science values and principles are grounded on solid research practices. So when we talk about open science, we mean science which is done with rigor, quality, integrity, with collective benefit in mind, equity and fairness, diversity and inclusiveness. So open science is just science which is done right. European definition of open science is a little bit shorter than the UNESCO one. This definition comes from Horizon Europe program, which is a research funding program of the European Commission, the largest in Europe. And it stresses open science as open cooperative work that emphasizes the sharing of knowledge, results, and tools as early and widely as possible. And this notion, as open as possible, as closed as necessary, is a principle that is used when we talk about data sharing, for example, in the context of European policies. So it's really up to the researcher to decide when and how research results will be shared. Horizon Europe includes a set of mandatory open science practices and also recommended open science practices. Recommended practices include early and open sharing of research results via pre-registration, and we'll talk about this by depositing data in repositories, sharing preprints, versions of manuscripts that haven't been peer-reviewed yet, also open collaboration with science and other knowledge producers, ensuring verifiability and reproducibility of research outputs, managing data according to FAIR principles, and this fair data management is actually a mandatory requirement in Horizon Europe, making sure that research data are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and also immediate and unrestricted access to the research results presented in peer-reviewed publications is also a mandatory practice. Participation in open peer review and promoting public engagement in research and innovation are also recommended practices. So just to recap, if you want to receive funding, research funding from the European Commission, then you will be required to make your research article openly available immediately after publication, and you are not asked to publish in an open access journal. You're asked to deposit this article in a repository where access is provided immediately under an open license. With research data management, you will be asked to manage data according to as open as possible, as closed as necessary principle. And you'll be asked within 6 months of the start of the project to write a data management plan where you will explain how you will collect data, or maybe you plan to reuse other people's data, how we will reuse it, how you will make your data available if you plan to do so, how you will store the data short-term and also long-term. And there is a template for that, so you don't need to worry, but you need to know that research data management plays an important role in implementing projects. And there is no requirement to make data open if the data can't be open for various legal, privacy concerns, commercial reasons. You can explain why you're not making your data open if you can't, but you have to describe your data still, and at least let people know that such data exist, and maybe can be shared under special data sharing provision. But of course, ideally, if you can, you as a researcher will make data underlying publications presented in research articles openly available to any researcher. Open science is also an integral part of research proposal that you will have to submit if you apply for European funding. And I'm showing here an example from European Commission Horizon Europe, but there are similar requirements now from other European research funders. So when you present your research experience, you are asked to list up to 5 publications or widely used data sets, software, goods, services, or any other research products. And for the European Commission, it doesn't matter where exactly you publish your publications. It matters that those publications or data sets are openly available to others. So you already have to demonstrate that you have some experience with open science when you are applying for funding. And also you have to include open science as part of methodology, your project methodology, also as part of impact and part of quality and efficiency of implementation. I think now is a good time to start thinking about implementing some open science practices and getting this experience that will be required if you're looking for European funding. European Commission also offers a number of support instruments and tools helping researchers implement open science, and it is building a European Open Science Cloud that will enable access to research data. It also offers an open access publication platform where a grantee could publish research results without paying article processing charges. I'll hand over to Milica to continue.
Yes, I will continue with some additional information about the topic that Iryna has already started. So the good thing in the European context is that tools are provided for you to meet those requirements listed in the in European policies, and all these tools will be brought together in a new research environment that will be called, and that is already called EOSC, which is still being built. It's quite a complex network and quite a complex ecosystem. And what is very important is that those services are aligned with some principles, that they meet some quality standards, some technical standards, and they are already described in a database, but it will be available in some months. So this first link, EOSC EU nodes, will be the place where you will find it. When you get the presentation, all these tools and all these services are linked so you can explore them for yourself. I would particularly like to draw your attention to some of the services that you can already use, although you are not based in Europe. Basically, most of these tools can be used, but Zenodo is widely known repository. It's a generalist repository that is free to all, and that offers you an opportunity to deposit your data and all other materials. And initially it was created when this mandate was starting to be introduced. Some researchers didn't have their repositories, and Zenodo was created for those researchers to make it possible for them to meet the requirements. And the general principle in those European programs is that usually when something is made required, then the tools are created to make it possible for researchers and for applicants to meet these requirements. Iryna has already mentioned Open Research Europe as a publishing platform, and later we will see an example how it looks. It's a Diamond Open Access platform, and this is the place where people who are who have those European projects can publish their work, and open peer review is performed. So they publish something as a preprint, and then throughout the process, the process and the work and the reviews are transparent. Also, another thing that is for me is very interesting, and which actually is available to you as well, are virtual research environments. This is something quite new, very complex. These are spaces where you can perform very complex research, when you can perform simulations, and it's an interactive, very innovative research process. So this is something that will be even more relevant in the future. And also on the right side of the slide, you will find very interesting training resources, very useful ones, and these are training platforms created within the Open Plato. It's a general one, but the others are created within European various projects and infrastructures. And this European University Alliance resource is also very interesting because it provides training for administrative staff. So it's not only about researchers, but those who are supporting them. They should also be capable of providing support to open science. And also what is available to you and what is also highly recommended is OpenAir Explore, it's an aggregator, or actually it's a discovery platform that is underlined by an aggregator and a very complex research graph. It harvests metadata from various sources, from a great number of repositories worldwide, not only Europe, and Iryna will show an example that is not European. It also harvests materials from the OIJ. These are open access journals, and it significantly increases the visibility of institutional research or research in small countries, research communities that are not that visible, also beyond Europe. So it's quite easy to get connected, and if you have an institutional repository, you can set up harvesting with OpenAir. And this is an example. So Iryna will explain in greater detail what it is.
I dropped a link in the chat there, and if you click search, you'll get to the search page. And here I filtered publications from Japan, and also publications and other research outputs that are available in open access. And the reason I showed Japan is because National Institute of Informatics in Japan uses OpenAir Explore as a discovery portal to showcase research done in Japan. They run a national repository service where they help universities set up their open access repositories, and then they provide data about those publications to OpenAir, and anyone can look for research results, latest research results. And there are also many other filters that you can use if you're only interested in specific types of research results on specific disciplines or only latest research results. We do recommend you to use this tool.
So now we are moving from the European focus to a more general one. And the question is how to make your research more open. So even if you're not based in Europe, even if you don't have all those tools, you can still make your research more open. And what is more important is why should you do this? So researchers usually ask this question, why? Do I have any benefits of this? Is this an administrative burden? Are people in Europe doing this because they have to in order to meet some requirements, or do they have some benefits? So now we will show some examples and show some pathways of opening up your research. What is, I'm having this very complex slide that is actually taken from, it's quite old, it's from 2018, but it's still highly relevant. And it shows you how to make your research more open. And what is very important to understand is that it is not about the outputs of your research, but it's about the workflow. So the whole workflow, as Iryna has already pointed out, becomes more open from the planning stage to the final outputs and the promotion of these outputs through various channels. And this slide shows various stages of the research workflow, from literature searching to research assessment, and it also shows the tools that you can use to do this. I will just mention some stages. So we all know that sharing research publications via various open access channels, we know how to do this. This has been already there for a while. But for example, when you talk to researchers, they are not aware that already at the literature search stage, they can make their research open. For example, they can create a library in Zotero or another research, another bibliographic tool, another reference manager, and they can make the list of references, the database of their references, which means metadata only, they can make it available to the community, either to a limited community, or it can be shared publicly. And then somebody can, for example, suggest the missing sources. And this is how researchers benefit by opening up the references that have already found. Also, they can pre-register report. We will see in a second how this look already at the planning stage. When doing research, when doing analysis, they can share interactive notebooks. Also, they can share various posters, various other materials that they create throughout the process that usually don't result in publications that are taken into account for research assessment, but they increase the visibility and they also encourage some inputs from the community. So if you want to share your research, there are many ways to do this, and you don't even need a kind of a policy. Policy encourages this, policy probably provides some additional funding, etc. But there are still some free tools, and there are many ways to open up your research, even if there is no policy at your institution or in your country. So how do we do this? For example, early on in your research, you can pre-register a report, which means that you actually create a plan for the research, and then you upload it, you share it in a dedicated repository, and there are platforms that enable this. So here you have the links, and you will find some of those platforms. For example, one of the most common ones, one of the most used ones is the Open Science Framework, and there you will also find the instructions how to do this. But there are also some disciplinary focused platforms, and basically by this research that you've uploaded there, it gets a persistent identifier, it becomes citable, it can be subject to review, and by doing this, you actually prevent scooping of your research. So you actually say that you plan to do this, and you establish precedents by doing this, by opening up your research plan. And what is good about this, if your research is pre-registered, then when you, whatever results you get, whatever, for example, experimental results you get, even if they don't support the hypothesis presented in your research plan, it's valid, and it is publishable. There are journals that publish this kind of articles resulting from such research, and it's valid. So it makes it possible for you to publish even negative results. And what is very important in open science is that negative results, they also have a value, and they are results, just like the positive results confirming the hypothesis. So there are quite many journals that do accept these studies resulting from pre-registered reports, and even publish some reports. And yeah, it's researchers usually comment that in some disciplines, for example, in the humanities, this is not as common, for example, as in psychology or medical research. But yes, you can try, and it's a good idea. Here is an example how this looks like on the Open Science Framework. So this is a study that is pre-registered, and you don't see it here, but it has a DOI, so it becomes citable, and it's searchable, and it's easily discoverable. Another way to open up your research early on before publishing formal publications is publishing a preprint. And there are many concerns among researchers about preprints, but I think that those concerns are not that huge now after the experience that we had with the COVID pandemic, when many researchers published, and when those actually preprints enabled a quicker outcomes of research, and that actually helped research discussion. So publishing a preprint means that you publish, you post research on a preprint server. You can do this before submitting it to a journal. You can do it at the same time when you're submitting this to a journal. And this is a kind of a way to establish priority of discovery. You're actually protecting your work, because when you publish it on a preprint server, it gets a persistent identifier, it's visible, it's free. Publishing on a preprint server is free. You don't need to pay any APCs or similar charges in order to make work available on a preprint server. And then you encourage discussion. At the same time, you may publish it, submit it to a journal, and then the same research goes through a regular peer review procedure, and then it gets published. And there is a way to establish links between those publications, so to know what to cite and to know that it is preceded. There are many resources about peer review. And one of the major concerns of researchers is that journals wouldn't accept works if they were published as preprints. This is not actually true, because an increasing number of journals are now accepting. Most journals actually accept and sometimes even prefer the manuscripts that have already been published as preprints. Iryna, over to you.
That's an example of a preprint repository built in India, and it is managed by Open Access India Group and Society for Promotion of Horticulture in Bengaluru. And if you could click on the next slide, please. This is how a preprint looks like. So you see that it announces research results. It's a journal article that haven't been peer-reviewed yet, but could already be useful source of information for other researchers. Thank you.
And what is important, preprints don't have, so on one of the previous slides, you could see benefits for individual researchers. So you establish the priority of your research, but preprints are actually also very good for the community and good for collaboration. So by publishing, sharing your manuscripts as preprints early on, you may attract some potential collaborations. Also, you get early feedback, and then you can publish, you can improve your manuscript. And this is a practice, for example, in physics and mathematics. This has been practice for decades, and you probably know about this archive preprint server or a repository where researchers publish manuscripts early on, and then they submit later on, they improve it and submit it to journals and publish to journals. Also, it's a kind of a productivity proof, and it's especially important for young career researchers because it takes time to get your first publications published in journals. And by having preprints published, you have actually a proof that you've done something, that you've done serious research. What is also the most important is that they are in open access. They are available to everyone, and anybody can benefit from this research, can provide feedback, and anybody can read, which is particularly important for those communities that have less resources, so they have access to this research.
Here, I would like to highlight increased citations, but there were studies that confirmed that journal articles that also have a preprint posted before publishing a journal article receive more citations, 36% more citations, and there are also disciplines in which citations start from preprints. For example, in high energy physics, over 1/3 of citations nowadays don't come from journals because they can't wait until the article is published. They start citing preprints because for them, speed of research is really important. Also, most journals don't object if you make your preprint available before you submit a journal article. You are only asked to tell this to a journal. And then, of course, blind review won't be possible, because if you already made your preprint available, then maybe peer reviewers, even if there is an anonymous review in the journal where reviewers wouldn't know your identity, I think they could search and they might find your preprint. There were also fears that when researchers make preprints available, someone might steal them and publish their own articles, but it hasn't happened so far. In almost all the cases, it really helped to prove research results produced by that author who shared preprint. And also, interestingly, in biology, 2/3 of preprints that were posted on bioRxiv preprint server were published as journal articles within 2 years after posting preprints, and in the format with the content almost identical to preprints. There were some maybe proofread readings, but the content remains the same. So preprints are really of high quality, and it could be a smooth path to publications when you start receiving early feedback. Thank you. Oh, one more, yeah, that's just to remind everyone that when we talk about preprints, we're all aware that they haven't been peer-reviewed yet, and preprint server marks them accordingly. And there are also tips for journalists that start citing preprints, especially this happened during COVID-19, when some media started overhyping some research results that were not peer-reviewed yet. So it's really important to, when findings from preprints are presented, it's important to stress that there is no quality stamp yet in a sense of independent peer review. Thank you.
So about sharing research data. So you saw that in the European policies, sharing data is mandatory, although you don't have to share. You share, there is this motto that says as open as possible, as closed as necessary, which means that if there is a good reason, a justified reason not to share the data, you don't really have to share the data, but the metadata needs to be aligned with the FAIR principles. And this is one of the most difficult discussion topics about research data. So about preprints, researchers tend to understand this, but when explaining why there is a need to share data, there are usually many concerns arising, and this diagram actually provides many answers to those concerns. One of the most difficult objective concerns is the lack of incentives, and I would consider it one of the most serious obstacles to data sharing, because data sharing requires a lot of work to make those data fair, to align them with the principle. Of course, if it's done as a part of a research workflow, it's much easier than doing this after the data are collected and published, etc. Doing this retrospectively is much greater effort, and this shouldn't be done this way. But still, there is a lack of incentives in many countries. Researchers are not really rewarded for this work, and this could be a serious obstacle. So the lack of time is also an obstacle, especially because researchers see this as an extra time that is invested, because they are not rewarded. If it were rewarded, then they would probably not consider it a kind of extra work. So also there is a fear that data might be scooped, but this is similar to preprints. Actually, by publishing data in a repository, data becomes citable, and it's a way of establishing, it's just the other way around, it's a way of establishing priority of research, because everybody can check and find and see the date when the data were published. So it's actually a way to protect your work. Also, there is another serious concern is about sensitive content, about ethical issues. For example, whether a mistake can be made, for example, publishing sensitive content, personal data, sensitive data. So this also might have legal consequences, or the data might be used in an inappropriate way. But if procedures are followed, these fears can actually be resolved, and a proper response can be provided to these fears. So if the FAIR principles are applied consistently, there is no fear that you can make a mistake. Also, there are issues, technical issues. For example, if you have large amounts of data, then you might need proper storage for this, so it may require some investment. And in this case, shared infrastructures can be a good response for this. And in the European context, huge efforts are being made to ensure this. Also, there is still the lack of knowledge, the lack of expertise, but this can be resolved through training, and many resources are available for this training. And if you want, for example, to establish training at your institutions, you can rely on those resources created within European context or within any other context, because research, those training materials are very often made available under an open license, so you can simply adjust them, translate them, etc. So basically all of these concerns can be there is a response to all of these concerns, and it requires some work to establish a different culture as regards data sharing, but it's not that difficult. About publishing in a repository, so another question is where to publish data. Shall we publish them on a website, or what to do? There are many repositories where data can be published. So basically, if an institution has an institutional repository, a data repository, data can be published there. Some institutions prefer to have all the data related to their research in their institutional repositories. But also there are many discipline-specific repositories, and it's a good way to publish data there, because it will be visible to a specific research community, and this can increase citations or collaboration. If you don't have any of this, or also in parallel, if you want to reach out to a wider audience, there are repositories such as Zenodo, which are free of charge, available to everybody globally. And if you want to find a suitable repository for your data, there is a very good registry, Re3Data. This is a curated registry. So in order to get there, a repository needs to come through some checks. And then it's included in a searchable database where you have very complex filters. So you can search by discipline, by licenses. You can even find a certified repository. So you choose a repository, and there are good ways or how to identify the right repository. As for those ethical considerations regarding sensitive data or any other, for example, legal issues, etc., in European Horizon Europe projects, those ethical considerations need to be addressed in the planning stage. So and these things are checked, and there are many guidelines ensuring that these issues are properly addressed, which means that if a project has been accepted for funding, those legal issues are already addressed in the research plan, and there is a lesser risk that something wrong will be done. So if you don't have a policy, it is still a good way to proceed is to make sure that those issues are addressed already in the planning stage, and this will make your workflow and your research much easier. So here we are sharing some tools. For example, informed consent. It's a very simple form that can be adjusted if you're doing a survey, then you need a kind of privacy policy or informed consent, and this wizard makes it possible for you to do this. And Amnesia is a tool that automates the process of data anonymization or pseudonymization, which needs to be done if you're working with personal and sensitive data. Over to Iryna for some examples.
Moving on to publication stage, there is this misperception that every open access journal charges a lot, and it's not correct. And if you could please click on the next slide. Directory of Open Access Journals is a good tool if you want to find an open access journal to publish in. And it lists almost 21,000 journals, and out of those journals, 13,759 don't charge any article processing charges. So most open access journals don't charge article processing charges. Next, please. We mentioned open peer review, and there are different flavors of open peer review. Traditionally, peer review process is blind, single or double blind, when neither authors nor reviewers know each other. But in open peer review, you can have open identities where reviewers and authors know who they are. And you can also have open reports when peer review results are published alongside the article. Next slide, please. There are issues with anonymous peer review, and there are also issues with open peer review, because usually Nobel Prize laureates receive higher praises from peer reviewers and early career researchers. But I believe that there are more benefits in open peer review than in closed review. And next slide, please. In some small communities, anonymity might be important, but still there are more benefits to research and also to researchers, to journal authors when open peer review is practiced, because it's more constructive and more fair, more open dialogue about research results. We don't really have time to talk about open software. I just wanted to highlight that usually articles that use free and open source software are retracted less often and cited more. So there are also benefits in terms of citations if you use open source software.
So we've already mentioned many challenges to open science: lack of time, ethical concerns. I think we've explained how to deal with those. There are sometimes some legal barriers related, for example, to data, or I don't know, to innovations, etc. But the lack of incentives and the research assessment system, when we discuss with researchers, these seem to be really major obstacles to a wider adoption of open science practices. And also there is resistance from commercial publishers to adopt those open science practices, and it's associated with research assessment systems. So these are things that are being tackled by some initiatives, for example, like COARA, that are striving to reform the research assessment system. On the other hand, apart from various challenges, there are many benefits of open science. And this is a diagram from the Open Research Europe that explains various benefits, for example, like greater transparency of the research process, which actually helps increase the reproducibility of research results, and then greater reliability of research results, and less retractions, as Iryna has already mentioned. Also, there is a greater potential impact of the research, because it's not only the publications but various research outputs that are visible early on, that can actually generate this impact. Also greater efficiency, because research doesn't need to be repeated by, for example, publishing data or publishing code or publishing protocols. You're actually preventing duplication of research. Anybody can reuse your research and build upon it without having to waste money on duplicating what you've already done. And also collaboration has been highlighted many times. And it's not, those benefits are not only limited to individual researchers. There are benefits for the research sector, but there are also benefits for the funders. And what is most important, because, for example, in Horizon Europe, there is this moment of social responsibility, which is very highlighted. Those research results have benefits for the general public, because they can access to research results thanks to open access. Then they can get involved through citizen science initiatives. They can get involved in research. And then they can also adjust some research results, those applicable ones, and provide some solutions for their communities. And also there are many benefits for the business sector, because the business sector can build upon research results, and they can collaborate with the research sector better, and they can also have increased opportunities for innovations. Now we have some more problems with.
Well, it's not really a problem. It's building on what Milica said, that it feels like it takes more time to practice open science, but in the end, it really saves you time, because it helps you plan your research activities in the beginning and follow your plan. So it helps you to be a more efficient researcher in the end of your research process.
So now we've chosen some example to illustrate what we've just said. And those examples are examples mostly from the Horizon 2020 program, and we chose those because some of them are already finished, so you can see the whole range of results, because those in the Horizon Europe are more recent, and we can't show the whole workflow. So this is an interesting project because it uses AI technologies. It collected a huge amount of data. It addresses a societal challenge, which is very important, as already said, in those open science projects in general. And it actually fosters collaboration among disciplines, among institutions from different countries. And it also supports the collaboration between the research sector in the industry. So it's you can see, you have the link, so you can explore the website. It's very interesting because it addresses living in the cities and event detection and early alerting of some events that may happen in an urban environment. And what this project actually says on the website, they published all the data sets as open access data sets on their website, but also this is a customized database on the website, but they are also available in repositories, and they are actually offering this data to SMEs, to startups, and they are offering this data to all those who want to train AI tools. So these data are curated and the quality checked, so they can probably be of good service to those enhancing and developing AI components. So apart from data, they published methodologies and they published software. So not all of their software tools are licensed under an open license, but the majority of them are. With sharing software, there are difficulties if you're using some components that are proprietary. Then there are difficulties when you want to share them under an open license. But most of their tools are available under an open license, and some of them, for example, this visual crowd counting, can be applied even beyond the academia. Then they have services, and they are developing these services, and they are offering these services to the others, and they actually invite collaborations based on the use of these services. And they also published preprints early on in their research, and they also published journal articles. So you can see the whole range of actually open science practices implemented in this project. I will remind you that journal articles and data are mandatory in European projects, so they probably were not required to publish their software tools, but they did because they see the benefits also for their project. Another project is also, it's actually related to Southeast Asia. It's a collaboration between European institutions and institutions in Southeast Asia. It's finished last year. It's also multidisciplinary research, but it addresses a societal challenge, but it's more related to the health sciences. And it also shows a number of results that follow the open science line of thinking. So they publish data sets. They're available under an open license. They published a preprint. They published journal articles, but what is very interesting, they published an article on the Open Research Europe platform, where you can see all the versions of this article that was initially submitted as a preprint. Then it was peer reviewed, and review reports are publicly available. You can read them, and then it was approved and accepted, and it's hosted on this platform as a journal, as a research article. Then they also contributed to the communities because they published many brochures, many videos, actually empowering community to implement the research results and to contribute to data collection. And there is another project that is ongoing, and you can, they're still in the data collection stage. It is also related to Southeast Asia, and we are yet to see the results, but now they are what is an open science practice as well. They are involving local communities in data collection. And over to you, Iryna, for the final thoughts.
Yeah, some final slides. So this is an email that I received from a publisher, and if you could click on the next slide, please. So it describes 3 small steps that can give my next paper an extra boost. I can make my data available in a data repository, can also publish preprints and share methods. Yeah, you can go to the next one. If you are like Barry Clark, for example, preparing a talk about open science, there is this collection of open science success stories, and you can filter by topic or by type of output. It's a useful resource. And next slide. And these are some small actions that you can consider if you want to practice open science. And there was a question in the chat how you can join some of those initiatives. So speaking about European projects, I'm putting a link in the chat to a list of ongoing European projects, and maybe you can check what are relevant projects in your area. And I think all of them will have some kind of engagement element with researchers from other disciplines. So there might be opportunities to join already ongoing project. And then for funding opportunities, I guess you'll need to check which funding is eligible for you as a researcher from a specific country. And then apply. Horizon Europe might not be eligible for every country attending yet.
So that's all from us.
And apologies if we rushed through and maybe didn't explain all the tables and figures, but slides will be shared, and I think you'll be able to look at them and to make an excuse. I'm also dropping a link to a national repository in Myanmar that we are hosting for a number of universities in Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is just a start the conversation. If you want to practice open science, then you will have to learn, and it's an interesting topic to learn and explore.
Thank you so much, Iryna and Milica. Excellent presentation. Really good overview of the concept, the tools, challenges, benefits, and I think the examples at the end, where you really showed how through the workflow open science is applied in some Horizon 2020 projects. That was very well explained and helps really to apply step by step. I see the comments in the chat. If you have any questions, you can still address them. Here there's one from Yanatul Koiro. Earlier, there's a grant proposal sharing. Would you recommend sharing them, considering the amount of work and originality in writing them?
Yeah, that's actually a challenge for me. I think I practiced all aspects of open science except proposal sharing, because usually you write proposals in the team and then you need agreement from every participants. So we shared some parts of proposals, for example, how we explain open science practices, but not all proposals. But I know people who share, especially rejected proposals, because then they can maybe find collaborators or maybe solicit interest from other funders. I don't know if Milica could add anything on that.
No, unfortunately, I don't know any good practices regarding this. I usually encounter researchers who are very reluctant to share research proposals, either successful or unsuccessful. But there is a good question in the chat about striking a balance between commercialization, future potential for future commercialization, and actually sharing results. And this is a tricky issue. And if I may say, it requires a kind of planning in your research and early assessment whether something has a potential for commercialization and not. You are not, if you have this potential, if something has the potential for commercialization, it doesn't really need to be shared. But it's more a matter of planning within your research group, because people sometimes fail to recognize those things that can be commercialized early on, and then they publish and then they have issues. So that would be my advice regarding this question.
Thank you. And thank you for addressing all the questions also, which we promised in our promotion for this webinar when we had an overview what can be expected. I see this also in the chat. I think all the participants very grateful for this overview. You stay with us for a few more minutes, please, because I'm going to hand over now from EIFL to NTU. Suni, you are with us.
Yes, hi. Yeah, thanks very much, Leonie, for organizing this event and for inviting me to share with the participants today about the Singapore Open Research Conference.
You can share your slides.
Yeah, okay. I've just put in a link to the event in the chat. Just let me try to share my screen here. Mm-hmm. Yes. Cool. Can you see my screen now? Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Share.
Now it's loading. Thanks.
Okay. Let me just. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So we are organizing a conference together with the local universities in Singapore, which will be held 11 to 12 November. And at the same time, we are, let me just move the video away. Yeah. And at the same time, we are giving out awards to recognize and reward our Singapore researchers who have used open science or open research to make their scientific contents, tools, and processes open, accessible, transparent, and reproducible. So we would like to give you a warm welcome if you can join us in Singapore, 11 to 12 November, for this very important event. Why I say it's important is because Singapore has been looking at open data, open access publications, open access data sharing on repositories, encouraging open codes and open methods in recent years. And we are at the state where we would really like to invite people with different perspectives from different disciplines to share about how they overcome the challenges. And if you were to take a closer look at the workshop, which will be in person at the same venue, which is the National University of Singapore, the focus will be on intellectual properties and open science. So I see there was a question in the chat just now asking about balancing the two. And if you have a chance to join us, yeah, this will be a perfect event to discuss how we can plan, like what Milica said, plan for such intricacies at the early stage. As part of the event, there will also be a networking session. So yeah, we will like to gather people in Singapore to network with people who have an interest in open science. So if you have a chance to join us, please feel free to register. We have the event registration page up. And let me point your attention to the program again, which I have included a link in the chat. So there is a registration link there, which you can register for free. And let me give you my email address as well. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I guess that's all I have, Leonie.
Thanks, Suni. Yeah, from EURAXESS ASEAN side, we are really excited for this conference and which also inspired to organize this webinar. We hope that we can have such a webinar at least once a year because it is such a strong movement. It is such an important foundation principle of Horizon Europe. So thank you to NTU, Suni, and your team for driving this here in Southeast Asia, in Singapore. This topic, and thank you so much to Milica and Iryna for this really good webinar, solid foundation, I think, for everybody who was participating. And maybe we can have even more sessions on that with more examples, practical examples. It was a very good, a very good afternoon. So if participants have questions, they have your email. And with this, I wish you, a remaining good day, and hope that you have learned enough concepts, ideas to apply it now in your daily work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great conference.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.